Have you ever wondered who really runs the underworld? I'm talking about the actual corporate structure of hell itself. While most people think Satan is just sitting on a throne making all the decisions, the truth is far more complex and absolutely terrifying. Today we're diving deep into the hierarchy that supposedly governs the darkest realm of existence. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never think about evil the same way again. What if I told you that hell operates more like a multinational corporation than the chaotic pit of fire most people imagine? Each department has a CEO, each sin has a specialist, and each form of temptation has been refined over millennia by entities so powerful they make your worst nightmares look like children's bedtime stories. These are the 7 princes of hell, and their influence on our world might be far greater than you ever realized. But before we meet these terrifying executives of evil, let me ask you something that's going to change your entire perspective. Have you ever had a day where everything seemed to go wrong, where every bad decision seemed to pile on top of the last one? What if those weren't just random events? What if there was actually a system behind it all, a carefully orchestrated campaign designed by beings whose entire existence revolves around understanding and exploiting human weakness? The concept of the 7 princes of hell isn't just some medieval fantasy dreamed up by bored monks. This hierarchy has been referenced across cultures, religious texts, and occult traditions for thousands of years. Different sources sometimes name different entities, but the core structure remains remarkably consistent. 7 princes, 7 deadly sins, 7 different approaches to corruption. It's like a perfectly designed machine for spiritual destruction. Now, I need to be completely honest with you about something. The information I'm about to share comes from religious texts, occult literature, and centuries of theological study. Whether you believe these entities actually exist or see them as powerful metaphors for human nature's darkest impulses, their influence on art, literature, culture, and human psychology is undeniable. So let's dive in and meet the board of directors of damnation itself. At the top of this infernal hierarchy sits Lucifer, the morning star, the fallen angel who supposedly started this whole rebellion against divine authority. But here's what most people don't understand about Lucifer. He's not just the king of hell, he's the prince of pride. And that distinction is absolutely crucial. Pride isn't just thinking you're better than others. It's the fundamental belief that you don't need anyone or anything beyond yourself. It's the sin that creates all other sins, the crack in the foundation that brings down entire civilizations. Lucifer's domain is intellectual arrogance, spiritual rebellion, and the seductive whisper that tells you that you know better than anyone else, including God himself. Think about every dictator in history, every cult leader, every person who's ever caused massive suffering because they were absolutely convinced of their own righteousness. That's Lucifer's signature on human history, and his influence runs so deep that most people don't even recognize it when they're swimming in it. But Lucifer doesn't work alone. Meet Mammon, the prince of greed, whose name has literally become synonymous with the worship of wealth. If Lucifer corrupts through intellectual pride, Mammon corrupts through material desire. He's the voice that tells you that happiness can be purchased, that your worth is measured by your bank account, and that there's no such thing as having enough. In our modern world, Mammon's influence is everywhere. He's in every advertisement that tells you you're incomplete without their product. He's in every get-rich-quick scheme, every pyramid scam, every moment when someone chooses money over morality. He's the prince who's turned entire societies into giant shopping malls where people work jobs, they hate to buy things, they don't need to impress people they don't like. Then we have Asmodeus, the prince of lust, and before you roll your eyes and think this is just about sexual temptation, let me explain what lust really means in this context. Lust is about the corruption of love itself. It's about taking something beautiful and sacred and twisting it into something selfish and destructive. Asmodeus doesn't just promote sexual sin, he promotes the idea that desire should never be restrained, that immediate gratification is more important than long-term consequences. This prince's influence goes far beyond the bedroom. He's behind every broken marriage, every addiction, every moment when someone chooses temporary pleasure over lasting happiness. He's the voice that says commitment is boring, that loyalty is outdated, and that you deserve to have whatever you want, whenever you want it, regardless of who gets hurt in the process. Moving deeper into this hierarchy, we encounter Satan himself, and here's where it gets really interesting. In many traditions, Satan and Lucifer are actually different entities. While Lucifer is the prince prince of pride. Satan is the prince of wrath. He's pure, unfiltered anger, the force that turns disagreement into hatred, frustration into violence, and justice into revenge. Satan's domain is every war fought over wounded pride, every family destroyed by uncontrolled anger, every moment when righteous indignation turns into something dark and destructive. He's the prince who convinces people that their anger is justified, that violence solves problems, and that some people simply deserve to suffer. In our current world, where outrage culture dominates social media and political division seems to deepen every day, Satan's influence has never been more visible. But perhaps the most insidious of all these princes is Beelzebub, the prince of gluttony. Most people think gluttony is just about overeating, but that's missing the bigger picture entirely. Gluttony is about consumption without purpose, about taking more than you need while others have nothing. It's about the insatiable appetite that can never be satisfied, no matter how much it devours. Beelzebub's influence extends far beyond food. He's behind every form of addiction, every hoarding behavior, every moment when someone consumes resources they don't need while others go without. In a world facing climate change, resource depletion, and massive inequality, Beelzebub's fingerprints are everywhere. He's the prince who whispers that more is always better, that scarcity is someone else's problem, and that you deserve to consume whatever you can get your hands on. Then we have Leviathan, the prince of envy, whose influence might be the most relevant to our social media age. Envy isn't just wanting what someone else has, it's actively resenting their happiness and success. It's the emotion that turns social media scrolling into self-torture, that makes other people's achievements feel like personal attacks, and that transforms communities into competitive battlegrounds. Leviathan feeds on comparison, on the human tendency to measure our insides against other people's outsides. He's behind every moment of bitter resentment when someone else gets promoted, finds love, or achieves success. He's the prince who turns celebration into competition and transforms joy into a zero-sum game where someone else's happiness somehow diminishes your own. Finally, we come to Belphegor, the prince of sloth. And once again, this isn't just about being lazy. Sloth, in its truest form, is spiritual apathy. It's the state of not caring about anything that really matters, of being too comfortable in your own stagnation to grow or change. It's the sin of wasted potential, of talents left undeveloped, of opportunities ignored. Belphegor's influence creates the walking dead among the living, people who are technically alive but spiritually dormant, who have given up on growth, purpose, and meaningful connection. In a world where entertainment is infinite and distraction is always available, Belphegor's realm has expanded dramatically. He's the prince who convinces people that mediocrity is acceptable, that dreams are for other people, and that it's easier to stay comfortable than to risk growth. Now here's where this gets really fascinating and deeply unsettling. These 7 princes don't work in isolation. They collaborate, they coordinate, and they have had thousands of years to perfect their methods. Think about how modern society seems specifically designed to amplify every single one of these influences simultaneously. Social media feeds your pride by creating echo chambers while simultaneously triggering your envy through constant comparison. Consumer culture promotes greed while advertising exploits lust and gluttony. Political polarization weaponizes wrath while entertainment culture enables sloth. It's like our entire civilization has been architected to give these princes maximum influence over human behavior. But here's what's even more disturbing. Each of these princes understands human psychology better than most humans understand themselves. They know that pride disguised as confidence is more seductive than obvious arrogance. They know that greed marketed as success is more appealing than naked avarice. They know that lust packaged as liberation is more attractive than simple hedonism. These entities, whether you view them as literal beings or as metaphorical representations of human nature's darkest impulses, have spent millennia studying what makes people tick. They understand that the most effective temptations don't look like temptations at all. They look like solutions, like opportunities, like the very things we think we want most. Consider how each prince offers something that seems positive on the surface. Lucifer offers independence and self-reliance. Mammon offers security and success. Asmodeus offers pleasure and freedom. Satan offers justice and strength. Beelzebub offers comfort and abundance. Leviathan offers motivation and ambition. Belphegor offers peace and contentment. The tragedy is that each of these princes takes something genuinely good and twists it just enough to make it destructive. Healthy self-confidence becomes destructive pride. pride. Reasonable ambition becomes consuming greed. Natural desire becomes destructive lust. Righteous anger becomes consuming wrath. Appropriate enjoyment becomes destructive gluttony. Healthy motivation becomes bitter envy. Necessary rest becomes spiritual death. This is why these figures have remained relevant across cultures and centuries. They represent the eternal human struggle between our better angels and our darker impulses. They embody the ways that our greatest strengths can become our greatest weaknesses when taken to extremes or corrupted by selfishness. But perhaps the most chilling aspect of this hierarchy is how perfectly it maps onto modern society's problems. Depression, anxiety, addiction, political extremism, social isolation, environmental destruction, economic inequality. Every major crisis facing humanity today can be traced back to the influence of one or more of these princes. The pharmaceutical industry profits from the despair that Belphegor creates while offering chemical solutions that often make the problem worse. Social media platforms exploit the envy that Leviathan feeds while claiming to connect people. Consumer culture amplifies the greed that Mammon promotes while destroying the planet's resources. Political movements harness the wrath that Satan kindles while claiming to fight for justice. It's like we've created a world that serves these princes rather than humanity itself. And the most terrifying part? Most people don't even realize it's happening. They think they're making free choices, pursuing happiness, living their best lives, when in reality, they're dancing to a tune that's been playing for thousands of years. So what does this mean for you? How do you recognize when you're under the influence of these spiritual forces, whether you view them as literal entities or as psychological patterns? The key is understanding that each prince's influence feels natural, justified, even virtuous at first. It feels like strength. When pride tells you that you don't need help, when greed tells you to prioritize money, it feels like wisdom. When lust tells you to pursue pleasure, it feels like freedom. When wrath tells you to strike back, it feels like justice. When gluttony tells you to indulge, it feels like self-care. When envy tells you to resent others' success, it feels like righteous indignation. When sloth tells you to give up, it feels like acceptance. The princes are masters of making destruction feel like construction, of making slavery feel like freedom, of making death feel like life. They understand that the most effective chains are the ones we put on ourselves while believing we're breaking free. Understanding the 7 princes of hell, whether as literal entities or as archetypal representations of human nature's shadow side, gives us a framework for understanding the forces that shape our world and influence our choices. It helps explain why doing the right thing often feels harder than doing the wrong thing, why civilizations rise and fall in predictable patterns, and why individual human beings struggle with the same basic temptations across cultures and centuries. These princes represent the ultimate corruption of everything good in human nature, the twisted mirror image of our highest aspirations. By understanding their methods, recognizing their influence, and consciously choosing to resist their appeals, we can begin to reclaim our agency and build lives based on genuine virtue rather than corrupted desire. The battle between light and darkness, good and evil, construction and destruction continues in every human heart, every single day. The 7 princes of hell remind us that this battle is real, the stakes are ultimate, and the choice is always ours to make.